a mountain goat. Ground this steep kills almost anything that tries to stand on it. A single wrong hoof, and there is nothing to catch the fall. Its only real defense is climbing higher into that same deadly rock than anything hunting it can follow. So can it outclimb what is already closing in? This ground tilts past 60 degrees in places, steep enough that almost nothing else with four legs can get a foothold at all. For a mountain goat, that is not a warning. That is the plan. This is the mountain that will try to kill it every single day of its life. And it starts here, as something barely bigger than a house cat. A mountain goat, standing on a ledge with no room for a second chance. Glacier National Park's high country is the continental divide at its rawest. Sheer rock and permanent ice standing thousands of feet above where most animals ever bother to climb, splitting one side of a continent from the other. Despite the name, a mountain goat is not really a goat at all. It is a specialized mountain climbing relative of the antelope, built by evolution for exactly this terrain and almost nowhere else. Wind strips these ridgelines bare most of the year, and for nearly half of it, the whole world up here freezes solid. Almost everything that lives at this elevation is built around one single problem. There is nowhere flat and nowhere warm to hide. Not every animal up here fights the mountain the same way. A marmot the size of a house cat solves it by sleeping through 7 months of it. A pika, the size of a fist, solves it by never really leaving its rock pile at all. A bighorn sheep solves it with speed and open ground the goat mostly avoids. The goat is the only one that solves it by climbing straight into the parts of the mountain built to kill everything else. Not every threat on this mountain comes from the ground. A golden eagle rides the updrafts along the cliffline, patient, scanning every ledge for anything small enough to lift. A single pair can patrol miles of cliff face as their hunting range, and attacks like this are rare. In the most detailed study of this behavior, eagles targeted goats in barely 2 out of every 100 sightings, and every recorded attempt was against a kid still small enough in its first few weeks of life to be reachable at all. In that same study, not one of those attempts succeeded. A nanny rarely leaves a kid exposed for long, and she keeps it tucked against rock the eagle cannot approach without giving up its only real advantage: surprise. The eagle is not the only one reading this slope from a distance. Lower on the slope, a wolverine works its way across a wind-scoured ridge, nose down, covering more ground in a day than almost anything else in this ecosystem bothers to. A wolverine weighs barely 40 pounds, yet there are documented cases of it killing animals 5 times its size, not through speed on open ground, but by using deep snow, the way a snowshoe works and a floundering hoof does not, closing the distance fast enough to end it with one bite to the back of the neck. On the steep, wind-scoured stone this goat is standing on, the wolverine's one real advantage is already gone. Here, for once, the mountain that could kill this goat with a single wrong step is also the one thing standing between it and this particular predator. But distance is not something every predator here respects. A cougar moves differently than either of them. Low, unhurried, choosing a line across the slope that keeps it hidden behind outcrops for as long as possible. Unlike the eagle or the wolverine, a cougar can kill a healthy adult goat outright, but only by closing to within a few body lengths while staying completely unseen, since its entire strategy depends on one short, explosive charge from cover, not a long chase across open ground. The moment it is spotted, a goat under threat runs for exactly one kind of ground. Slopes steeper than 60 degrees, terrain so extreme, the cougar's own instincts hold it back. Right now, this goat still has that ground within reach. 3 different predators, 3 different tools, and on this mountain, the same vertical rock defeats all 3. Every one of these predators is capable, in the right conditions, of ending this goat's life. Not one of them, on this exact ground, right now, actually can. That gap between capable and able is the only reason this animal is still here. When a predator will not give up the chase, the herd's most vulnerable members are already somewhere it cannot follow. A pregnant nanny goat has spent months making sure of exactly that. She gives birth alone, on a ledge so narrow and so exposed that almost nothing capable of eating her newborn can safely reach it, after carrying that single kid for nearly 6 months. It is an extraordinary gamble, choosing the most dangerous-looking real estate on the entire mountain because it is actually the safest place available. Within minutes, the kid is standing. Within a day, it is following her across terrain that would be a serious fall for a fully grown animal, let alone something that weighs about as much as a house cat. It has no choice. On this mountain, learning to climb is not a milestone. It is the price of admission to staying alive. Within weeks, it will be pooled with other newborns into a nursery band, nannies and kids together, so there are more eyes watching for what is circling overhead. But summer forgives mistakes this mountain will not make twice. Every kid born on this ledge has one season to get strong enough for the one that is coming. By December, the alpine meadows that fed this goat all summer are buried under snow. The wind never stops moving. Its whole world shrinks to whatever the wind refuses to cover. And on the worst days, moving at all costs more energy than it is worth. So it simply beds down against a rock face and waits the storm out. Mountain goats put on close to 1/3 of their body weight over summer, specifically to survive months of eating almost nothing. From here until spring, they are spending down a fat reserve they cannot refill. And every day the reserve does not last is a day they may not either. So they go where the wind does the work for them. Ridge lines and outcrops scoured bare of snow, exposing frozen, half-dead vegetation that is barely food at all, but food that is actually reachable. A range that covered miles of open alpine meadow all summer can shrink to almost nothing once the snow settles in for good. A goat that spends winter this thin is not just hungry. It is slower, weaker, and and for the first time all year, catchable.
This is what a cougar has been waiting all winter for. It closes the distance the way it always does. Low, patient, using every rock and fold in the terrain to stay hidden until the last possible second. For most animals on this mountain, that final rush is already the end of the story. But a mountain goat does not run away from the mountain. It runs directly into the worst of it, onto a ledge barely wider than its own hooves, up a pitch steep enough that the cougar's own claws cannot find enough rock to hold. Even its build helps. Stocky, front-heavy, a low center of gravity meant for pulling itself upward rather than sprinting on the flat. The hooves are built for exactly this too. A hard outer rim to grip stone, a soft inner pad that grabs like rubber. The cougar has neither. Within a few strides, the chase is already over, decided by geometry, not speed. The same ground that could have killed the goat with one wrong step just saved its life instead. That is not an accident. That is the entire strategy this mountain goat has been running since the day it was born, on a ledge just like this one. Take the mountain goat off this mountain and almost nothing changes for the wolverine or the cougar. They would simply hunt something else, somewhere else. Even the marmots and pikas sharing these slopes would barely notice. What would actually disappear is the mountain's only real proof that this terrain can be lived on at all. Not just survived for a season, but lived on, generation after generation, on ground built to kill almost anything else that tries.
So how does a mountain goat survive ground where one wrong step is fatal? It does not avoid that ground. It becomes the one animal alive that the danger actually protects.